Welcome to the GCN Tech Clinic, where we answer your bike maintenance and, well, technical bike questions. As ever, you can submit your questions using the hashtag AskGCNTech on social media and in the comments section down below. Now, first up this week, we've got a question that's been submitted by Francois Riviere, who says, I've always used wet lube on my road bike and just recently tried out dry lube, specifically C3 ceramic lube from Muck-Off. I did this with the bike that is on my indoor trainer as well as my outdoor bike, which is just starting to ride outdoors. I find that unlike the wet lube, I can hardly tell if the chain is actually lubed so much that it is dry. It is kind of worrisome, but probably normal. I applied the same amount of dry lube as I normally do wet lube, 1 drop per roller, but when I touch the chain with my fingers, it's very dry. Can you confirm this is normal? Nothing like a good lube question to kick things off. I mean, the double entendre minefield that is presented before me. Well, yes, I would say this is fairly normal. The clue's in the name, dry lube, tends to be lube. A lot of dry lubes are actually a wax which has a carrier, which is liquid. And then when you apply them onto the chain, the carrier evaporates, leaving behind a sort of waxy substance behind it. The advantage of dry lube is that, yes, it can be more efficient than wet lube, just a handful of watts. But if you're chasing performance, if you're a time trialist or something like that, then yes, it's a significant gain. And the other big advantage of dry lube is that it often attracts less dirt than wet lube. But yes, dry lube can often look and appear drier than wet lube. It can also make more noise when it's running on your chain. Now, this is curious to me because it makes me think that that noise is indicative of energy being converted into sound, and therefore the drivetrain is perhaps less efficient. But I have heard it mentioned that this isn't the case, but if there are any experts on drivetrain friction currently watching, now's the time for you to step up in the comments and let me know what the deal is there. One thing I will say is that when you buy a new chain, it actually has a waxy coating on it, which is like, well, similar to kind of like what you'd have from a dry lube. What I would say is also try waxing your chains in the future. JC made a really good video about it previously that shows you how to do it. So I would suggest giving that a go. I think wax is the best all-round lubricant to put on your chain. It doesn't attract much dirt and it's very efficient. Right, next question is from Andrew Chi, who says, hi everyone at GCN. I recently bought an Elite Sweeto trainer that came with an 11-speed cassette, but his bike, Giant TCR, has a 10-speed cassette on it. Is it possible to use my 10-speed bike on the Sweeto without having to change the cassette on the trainer? Thanks in advance. I would say no, don't bodge it, don't use it. The gauge between the cogs on the 11-speed cassette is smaller, and your chain of your 10-speed bike is slightly a wider gauge as well. It kind of will work, probably in the biggest gear, but it's a bodge and it's likely to cause, it could jam. The chain is likely to move in between gears and not stay in gear. I would say a 10-speed cassette is not that expensive. Buy a 10-speed cassette and a spacer, and then that will allow you to fit the 10-speed cassette onto the 11-speed free hub on your trainer. That's the best way to do it. Next question is from Aaron Weitzberger, who says, hi Ollie, I'm about to build my first lightweight project. Yes, love a lightweight bike build project. Done one myself. Big fan. I'd like to do another one actually. Since I want to get under 6 kilograms, I was wondering what kind of bottom bracket is the lightest, maybe in combination with a SRAM Red crankset. Thanks a lot, love the show. Yes, well, SRAM Red Mechanical remains the lightest production group set that's ever been made. So that's a great choice. With regards to bottom bracket, a BB30, such as you'd get in a Cannondale frame, is typically the lightest. Generally speaking, any press fit solution is going to be lighter than a threaded bottom bracket or any metallic sleeve that you have to insert with cups that screw together. Press fit system with bearings on either side. Obviously these aren't always the most reliable systems, but one of the advantages they do have is that they are lighter. So if absolute low weight is your main priority, that would be a good thing to go for. If you want to go full weight weaning, you could actually take the bearings apart, strip the grease out and put in a lighter weight mineral oil in there as well, and less grease in the bottom bracket, but just don't expect it to last anywhere near as long. But Andy Makarvich says, hey Ollie, just wondering what you use for hair product. Well, where is it? Where's it got to? I happen to use Park Tool Thread Locker because I'm worth it. Next question is from Andrew Jones, who says, I've been working on my TT speed of late by riding to work 50 kilometers a day. We've all done stuff, Andrew. Anyway, good work. You'd like to change to a Shimano Ultegra 56 large chainring, and he feels ready for that size. Can you show us how to do it and recommend the best place to source them? My local bike shop recommended moving to Rotor Q rings to achieve the ratios he wanted. He'd rather keep to Shimano. A 56 tooth chainring is not cheap, so he wants to get it right. Lives in Australia. Okay, right. Shimano does make 56 tooth chain rings. It makes bigger ones as well. It makes 58, and I think it even makes 60 as well now. But technically speaking, it only makes them for the pros. So while you might see them on our pro bikes that we do, especially time trial bikes for, like, you know, Rowan Dennis or Geraint Thomas or whatever, they aren't commercially available. The largest commercially available chainring that Shimano does, I believe, is a Dura Ace 55 tooth, which is what I've got on my TT bike. So if you find out where you can get them, let me know, because I want one as well. But you might be able to find one secondhand being sold by a former pro on eBay or something like that. Failing that, you're probably going to be looking at another brand of chainring for your TT bike. Pyramid Cycle Design and Aero Coach both do custom chain rings for TT bikes that are larger, you know, things like 60 tooth chain rings, which can make the drivetrain really efficient. Actually had an Aero Coach Brute 60 tooth chain ring on the Hour Record bike. Yes, that was an Hour Record mention for those of you keeping a tally. Can't guarantee that there won't be others. Anyway, let us know how you get on, and when you've done your bike, your TT bike, submit it using the app in the bike vault, and we'll judge it, nice or super nice. Next question is from Austin Shoop, who says, how much does the placebo effect play into upgrades? Great question, very, very good question. So within science and within any kind of study that's ever performed, the placebo effect has to be eliminated through blind studies where it's randomized and a load of people are given a placebo. It's established scientific testing practice, because placebo effects are massive. And typically it's been observed, and people have actually done studies into placebos, that people can see 15% improvement in sort of physical performance when carrying out like a time trial or something, just down to a placebo, which shows the power of the mind. But I mean, if something is giving you a placebo, still helping you out, so there's an argument that, well, maybe it is worth buying. Anyway, yeah, up to 15% is the short answer. Next question, Patrick Lumplecker says, are there any problems when changing only the inner chainring from a 36 to a 34, but leaving the outer chainring on your chain set as a 52? Well, yes, there kind of are problems. So it's not actually designed for this, because the jump between the two chain rings is a really big gap, and that's why they don't sell them as that system. The ramps on the teeth are also designed for that specific gap of 52 to 36, and in other chain set combos as well. So it's a specific gap of, 53 to 39, and the teeth are ramped to guide the chain smoothly. So if you change to a 34 in a ring, shifting is not going to be optimal. Shimano, for example, wouldn't recommend it. SRAM wouldn't recommend it. And you're at greater risk of misshifts or dropping your chain. However, this is the caveat. Although they don't recommend it, I've tried it. It does work. We've even seen pros do it as well. So on stages of, say, the Giro d'Italia, where they're going up the Mortirolo or something, and they want an inner 34 ring because it's such a steep climb, they'll often secretly put an inner 34 on. I put a 34 on my chain set, took off the 36 when I did an Everesting a couple of years ago, Alta Badia, and I found that it did work. I didn't drop my chain at all throughout the entire time, but the shifting wasn't quite as good. I did notice that, so I had to be a little bit more careful when shifting so that I didn't drop my chain. As a long-term solution, wouldn't recommend it, but if you were doing a specific event, maybe you can make it work and it'll be okay. Next question is from Jake Stocker. He says, yo, Ollie, hope everyone is staying safe. Don't worry, man, hair's growing long, but we're staying safe, although I can't vouch for my plant. Anyway, he says, wondering if he should reduce his crank length from 172 millimeters to 170 millimeters. Is there much difference? He was advised after having a bike fit to reduce the length. If so, will he also have to reduce the saddle height or alter the saddle height? Yes, in theory, there can be quite a difference. I like this question because it's something I've played around with myself. Now, okay, there's not a huge amount of difference, 2.5 millimeters. It's not much, is it? But it can make a difference. And going back to the previous question on placebos, could definitely be a placebo too. The thinking behind altering your crank length, and in particular going shorter, has big implications if you're in your TT position or an aero position. The reason being that it allows you to ride in a really aero position, really low down, but your knees won't come as close to your chest. It allows you to maintain a more open hip angle, which can help with power production and being more efficient when pedaling. A really closed hip angle can be less efficient at generating the power through the motion of your quads. So that's one thing that can help. In terms of altering your saddle height, actually if you reduce your crank length, your saddle height should go up by the amount that you've reduced your crank length by, which can make you a little bit less aerodynamic. So, well, I don't know. I'd say give it a go. You've got nothing to lose. Try it out and see if you prefer riding with shorter cranks. Certainly, I prefer riding with shorter cranks on a TT bike, but on a normal road bike, I don't really mind so much. Camucho says, all right, Ollie lad, brackets again, laughing face. How is drivetrain efficiency measured? Like, what do these tests look like? Well, there are a number of ways to do it. Friction Facts is one such organisation that has been measuring drivetrain efficiency for a long time, and they do it by way of a purpose-built jig. Now, this is what a lot of companies will use and build. It's an indoor piece of lab equipment specifically designed to do it. So you simply measure the amount of force or the amount of power that you're putting in to the cranks, and then you measure the amount of force or power that comes out of the other end, so at the hub. And the difference between the two measurements is, well, the amount of energy that has been lost in the system. No system is, 100% efficient. There is always going to be some degree of loss. Now, you can actually, in theory, do this at home. If you had a pedal-based power meter, some rollers, and a hub-based power meter, like a power tap hub, you could sort of measure the difference between the two power meter readings, and effectively, in theory, what would be the difference would be the amount of energy you were losing through your drivetrain, well, the amount of power you were losing through your drivetrain. Yeah, this would be quite difficult to do, and the kind of difference you would see would typically be within the realms of experimental error, and only a couple of watts, and most power meters aren't accurate to that kind of level that you would need. So specialist lab equipment would be what would be required. The next question is from Velo Pinefreen, who says, hi GCN, great show, always look forward to the new videos. Thanks. Background, I've converted my wheel setup to tubeless about a month ago. I've been riding my bike as often as possible. I've had a few punctures, but they've sealed no problem. That's good to know. However, once you get home and wash your bike, punctures seem to reopen. You see the sealant bubbling out on the surface of the tyre. They seal eventually and hold a bit of air fairly well, but the same punctures keep on reopening every time you wash your bike or get your tyres wet. What do you think's causing it? Right. Well, it sounds like your sealant in your tyres is pretty water soluble, so it's probably dissolving slightly at the point of where the punctures are. One thing to do would be to try a different sealant particularly a sealant with particulate in, if you've not used that. So some sealants come with particulate in, like Orange Seal, or there's a hack you can actually, which I learned from GMBN, you can put craft glitter inside your tyre as well, like a teaspoon of it, and then that acts as platelets in blood and helps clog up puncture holes, makes it a bit more effective. Another thing you could potentially do is actually take your tyres off, and then where you've got these holes, locate them on the inside of the tyre and actually plug them up with something. So you could use a dedicated tyre boot, or you'd probably get away with some duct tape and put some duct tape on covering the bits on the inside of the tyre just to plug those holes, and that will probably work. I'm sure you can find something to sort it, and it's worth doing, especially if the tyre still has plenty of tread life in it as well. If the tyre is completely bare and worn out and dying, then it might be time to just get a new tyre. But yeah, let us know how you get on with that. Hopefully that'll fix it. Next question is from D. Theron, who says, great show, GCN team. He says the videos are keeping him entertained. He says he's got a beautiful Ibis Hacker with a matte finish. Any tips on maintaining the matte finish? Is polish okay, or will it affect the finish? Product recommendations appreciated. Yes, polish should be fine. Most bike frames have very durable, proper finishes on them. There are dedicated bike polishers, but automotive products should be pretty good as well. And if you read the label on them, it should tell you if they're suitable to be used on that kind of surface. Usually they are. Muck-Off make a matte finisher, which is quite good. I've used it on this bike because it has some matte bits on it. And also I'd recommend having a look at the sort of ceramic coatings I tried recently. So if you didn't see it, I made a video where I applied some automotive ceramic coatings, which would normally be used on cars, onto my Pinarello, and the results were pretty good actually, so much so that I've used it subsequently. It creates a really hydrophobic surface on the bike, which then repels dirt and water, helps it keep it cleaner for longer, and you get this really nice beading on the surface whenever you wash it. So yeah, check out that video if you've not seen it, and yeah, give it a go and let us know how you get on. Finally, the last question this week comes from Sheila Stallard, who says, the Park Toolbox. There it is. Does it include a tool for hair cutting? Keep safe, keep them coming. Well, Sheila, the Park Toolbox contains everything you could ever need in a lockdown situation. I wasn't lying. As it contains scissors. So I will, yeah, I mean, it's getting ridiculous, isn't it? I'll give them a go, and hopefully see you next week. Stay, tune in for the results. That's all we've got time for on the GCN Tech Clinic this week, but as ever, we hope you've enjoyed watching it. I hope I've managed to answer your questions, and if you have any questions yourself that you would like to submit, well, you know what to do. Fire them down in the comments section or on social media using the hashtag AskGCNTech. And for some more GCN Tech content, well, we've got videos on screen. Stay safe and wash your hands.